All right, time frame approve with the proposal modification. A few commenters question the requirement of the title of statute 29.3 I for the registered agency to move to make and determine whether they approve of the sponsor of the proposal, the application for the modification registered program within 45 days of the receipt of the existing regulation. Simply provide with the prompt submission with the request for the modification. Set no time frame for the registered agency. Provide notice of guidance for whether the registered agency would not must do to process the application modification. Commenters asserted within the 45 days but not provided sufficient time for the review of the comment with the, in particular with the proposed requirement would not align with the schedule of the state apprenticeship of the council that only meet the quarterly, even every day with every 90 days with the review of the proposal modification and registered apprenticeship program. Other the commenters did not support the proposed 45-day time trial time frame with the registration of the agency to make the determination whether they approve of the such submission with the regular response in light with the quarterly meeting that's scheduled with the youth of many states and with the Apprenticeship Council with the State Apprenticeship Agency with the review of the proposal modification in 90 days with the time frame that's more appropriate for the registered agency to make. Determination with the approval of such submission, we also clarify the approval of the registered agency will record the knowledge of the modification within 90 days with the approval of the final with the statute 29.3I. Also clarify that the modification or not reviewed with the registered agency will notify the sponsor of the disapproval to provide with the reason, therefore, with the final in 29.3I, with the has been changed accordingly. The criteria for the apprenticeship occupation is 29.4. Section 29.4 provides the criteria for determining the occupation qualified for the apprenticeship within the provision proposed with the NPRM, with the line with the 29.4, with the change with the way of the progress for the apprenticeship program as discussed further with the discussion 29.5B2. So the commenters raised with the question concerned with the deletion and the term of the skill trade with the inconsistently between an apprenticeship occupation with the requirement of the hours on the job, learning and competency-based approach for the completion of the apprenticeship program provided with the final 29.5B2. Definition of skilled trade. A comment is raised with the concern with the deletion of the term skilled trade with the described with the apprenticeship occupation association with the term that is recognized nationally in the construction industry as a commonly used response. We acknowledge that all the skilled trade is nationally recognized with the term of the construction industry with the emphasis of the deletion of the term of the regulation for the national apprenticeship system. It is not meaning to discourage this and continue for the term. However, the apprenticeship extends to the new industry would have the term with not more generic approach with the better reflect the terminology for the variety of the industry, including accordingly we have not added the skill trade to the final rule. However, the on-the-job learning. Some comments suggested that requiring at least 2,000 hours on-the-job work experience entitled Statute 29.4C with the conflict for the competency-based approach for outlined in the 29.5B2 with the response to 22,000 hours stand for the 29.4C with the solely with the purpose of helping to define an apprenticeship occupation in order for the occupation to be considered an apprenticeship. It must be an occupation with learning and will be conducted with a traditional on-the-job manner. It would require at least 2,000 hours on the job learning, as in discussed more fully with the next section on the standard of the apprenticeship on the time base of the apprenticeship program, but required to provide at least 2,000 hours of the actual on the job training, learning, competency based or hybrid programs also will be required to provide on the job learning, but the required hours will be varied with the provide of the program. The comments for the section brought to the light of the inconsistent with the interchangeable use of the term of the on the job training with the work experience throughout the proposed rules to refer to the on job learning component with the registered agent registered apprenticeship with the required in the statute 29.4C with the 29.5B2. We have replaced the terms on the job training with on the job work experience with the term on the job learning of the throughout the final rule. Standard apprenticeship with the 29.5. The proposed change with the 29.5 regarding the standard of the apprenticeship proceed with many of the comments over the 132 comments pertaining to the use of the comments, the approach to approve the progression throughout the apprenticeship and other significant area of the interest center for the related to the instruction, apprenticeship, and instructor certification, advanced training, credit transfer, the interim credentials, and cancellation relate. The apprenticeship the approach theory approach of the completion of the apprenticeship, the statute section 29.5b, which based on the existing requirement of the on-the-job learning must be consistent with the industry practices. President 3 message with the being individual apprenticeship that may progress toward the industry standard with work experience. These messages are a one-time-based approval approach involving the completion of the 2,000 hours of on-the-job work experience. 2, competency-based approach involving the successful demonstrate for the acquired skills and knowledge of the apprenticeship that is verified with the program sponsor plus on-the-job learning component. But the 3, the hybrid approach involving the completion of the specific minimum number of the hours plus successful demonstration of the competency. Many commenters raised the question and asked clarification about the proposed 3 approaches. Many of the commenters questioned whether the competency-based model would require with the on-the-job learning, with most of the commenters expressed the concern that they proposed the term would not adequately define. The industry should be equipped with the monitor validity and achieve the standardization that existing. Minimum standards would be a compromise with the community base of the organization paid with the proposed 3 approach with exciting the study for the indicate with the non-traditional apprentices such as women are more likely to complete the program is such a requisite of the pre-apprenticeship training program. We're recognized with the competency base for the use of the hybrid approach. Several commenters expressed for the concern for the competency base for the hybrid method for the completion of the apprenticeship would be allow the apprenticeship to circumvent on the job learning with the related technical instruction with the demonstrated of the acquired skill for the knowledge and other commenters expressed an apprehension over the potential of the safety compromise, particularly in the construction quality and the needs for of safeguards of the welfare of the apprenticeship. And one commentator asserted that the competency base of the apprenticeship program would not require the apprenticeship to demonstrate the competency in the real-time distraction, sometimes with the noisy, sometimes dirty, often unpredictable environment. Many of the commenters interpreted the proposed 29.5b2 would mean all the program the sponsors would have to adapt to all 3 of the approaches of the completion of the apprenticeship this rule carries fully the traditional model because it has worked with well in many of the occupations that have used the time based approach for the registered apprenticeship. We expect that the most program sponsors in those occupations will continue with the approach. However, as part of the Department of Strategic Emphasis of the meeting with the training need for the business and work and our policy expands, the apprenticeship has become particularly with the traditional and time-based approach of the time and training that does not fit with the norms of all the industry, with the occupation seeking to use of the registered apprenticeship model with the final rule acknowledges the need for the industry preferred with continue with the time-based approach with the registered apprenticeship as well as those industries that require more flexibility with the hour and how an apprenticeship can attain the journey worker level of proficiency. We agree that the clarifying language is required with all the 3 approaches with the ensure with the job learning the required with the component with all the apprenticeship programs. Paragraph 2 with the statute 29.5b with the 2 with the revive with including the additional language specifying with the programs using the competency-based approach must still require an apprenticeship to complete with on the job with the learning component with the register. Alright, apprenticeship. We emphasize that on-the-job learning remains the primary method of the apprenticeship game with the substantial competency necessary for the successful completion of the competency base with a hybrid apprenticeship program. An apprenticeship program used with a competency base with a hybrid approach does not exempt the apprenticeship from participating in fundamental elements of registered apprenticeship on-the-job learning related to the instruction. The Office of the Apprenticeship of the Kinds for the competency base for the hybrid apprenticeship curriculum 2005-03 with described the program sponsored for the apprenticeship can comply with the requirements of the minimum on-the-job learning with each of the major work process that use the competency-based or hybrid approach outlined in Statute 29.5b2. Additionally, materials available on the Career One-Stop website or http://w.careersononestop.org/competency model. Provide examples of the recently approved the competency-based apprenticeship program in the advance of the manufacturing health of the care and industry. The example of the showcase the depth and the breadth of the information required for the define the competency establishing proficiency level, the competency developed, the test and evaluation for said competency with the guidance reinforced with the competency-based model but does not negotiate requirements over the on-the-job learning related to the instruction such as the requirements will ensure that all apprenticeship will expose the workplace with the condition properly trained and the safety requirements essentially for the industry. Neither a proposal nor the final rules require for the program signed for the registration agency to adopt all 3 approaches of the new paragraph 4 of the as they had been adopted in statute 29.5b2 to clarify the determination for the appropriate approach for the program sponsor standards they made with the program sponsor subject to the approval of the registration agency. The determination is appropriate for the approach apprenticeable occupation for which the program standards are registered. We seek to provide a flexible variety in the industry, greater flexibility option for the approach for addressing the talent development needs through the apprenticeship discussed in the NPMR business industry labor that have been requested for the more flexible accountability national apprenticeship system that meets the workforce development needs. The pilot program which sponsors the measured apprenticeship attaining of the certain skills and competency rather than using traditional time-based approach made with the new business, labor, and industry of the Department of the National Apprenticeship System have found the competency-based with the apprenticeship to provide with the flexibility and accountability necessary to be used. Registered apprenticeship in their respective industry and occupation. Final statute 29.5b2 provides a greater flexibility with the registered apprenticeship program to address the career development plan for the registered apprenticeship as we had emphasized with the NPMR. The 3 approaches that reflect the experience of the traditional building construction trade with the industrial sector with the youth of the time-based apprentices while addressing the need for the emerging industry seek within that participate with the national apprenticeship system. Therefore, we anticipate the program sponsored will use the approach for the best means meets the needs for the particular industry. We do not intend to discourage the use of the time-based approach in those occupations in which has been proven successful, nor if any with the new occupations that lend themselves to the approach related instruction. The majority of the comments and provisions related to the supplemental instructions stated that the training through the use of the electronic media proposed in Statute 29.5b4, but it should be supplemented as suppliant, not suppliant, replaced with apprenticeship by ongoing face-to-face interaction classroom time with the instructor. Some of the commenters suggested the department clarify the electrical media can be used as supplemental to the classroom instruction, but that is not substitute for the instructor and apprenticeship interaction. Many suggest that the electronic media should not be allowed for the use as sole method related to technical instruction, as it would be to open the widespread misuse of the mismanagement. Others suggest that the regulations require that the majority of the significant portion of the related instruction should be provided through in-person instruction. Other commenters supported the use of the electronic media in related instruction because it enhances the flexibility in registered apprenticeship and then recognizes the new training methods and technology response. The inclusion of electronic media with related instruction was critical with the line with the National Apprenticeship System and the technical advance of the appropriate industry with the application of such advances. Section 29.5b4 does not require all the industry of the apprenticeship program to meet must use with electronic media rather than it permits the use of electronic media as a tool to support industrial learning styles. Section 29.5b4 retains the other methods of the related instruction such as classroom, occupational, industrial course with other instructions approved by the registration agency, the extent of which an apprenticeship program and incorporate with electronic media into provisions related to instruction depends on the learning objective for the particular occupation associated with the program, and therefore the regulatory framework for how the apprenticeship should not specify with how related technical instruction will be delivered. Such decisions are most appropriately determined by the program sponsor, subject to approval of the registration agency. Through the provisions registration process, the review of the modification registered program that is established in 29.3 registration agency will coordinate with the program sponsor to identify the appropriate method of providing the related technical instruction. The registered agency and evaluation of program performance within quality assurance assessment process and established in the 29.6b will identify any assets with any changes as in related with the technical instruction and in effect with the overall operation quality of the program. To further address the concern regarding the inappropriate and ineffectiveness of the electronic media and the provision of related technical instruction, the Office of Apprenticeship will consult with the state apprenticeship agencies to develop its further guidance for the illustration or appropriate use of electronic media. Your apprenticeship instructor qualification. Proposed requirements for an apprenticeship instructor will be similar state with requirements such as the meeting with the state Department of Education requirements of the vocational technical instructor will either be recognized as the subject matter expert will require the instruction of the training and teaching with the techniques of adult learning styles. Few comments generally supported with the proposed qualification for the apprenticeship instructor in Statute 29.5b4 because they would raise the quality of the apprenticeship instruction. Such commenters state that the proposed changes did not adequately define the subject matter expert or provide the guidance for how the apprenticeship program of the registered agency should make the determination who may be considered with the subject matter expert. Others agree with the concept of improving the quality of the apprenticeship. Instructors must be stated to propose change with the overall restrictive with requiring all the instructors to be certified with all the state vocational education instructor requirements. The commoners question whether the junior workers will have to be certified with the state vocational educational entity in order to teach the regulated instruction component of the registered apprenticeship. Some commoners assert that the proposed text of the text will eliminate the use of the junior workers as a subject matter with the expertise of the technical experts. Some of the commenters supported with the proposed requirement of Statute 29.5b4 with the apprenticeship instructor having the training and the teaching the techniques of adult learning styles. Others requested clarification on this requirement. We agree with the proposed. The rule did not provide the adequate guidance for the flexibility for the instruction qualifications. Accordingly, we have revised Statute 29.5b4 to clarify that an apprenticeship instructor must either meet the State Department of Education requirements for a vocational technical instructor or be a subject material expert. The rule is clarifies the subject matter experts or individuals who are recognized within the industry of having expertise in specific occupation. Junior workers can be considered subject matter experts, therefore may be appropriate instruction-related technical instruction provisions. Statute 29.5b4 with requiring instructors to have training of the teaching techniques of adult learning styles will further ensure quality of the instruction of the National Apprenticeship System. Training and understanding of the teaching techniques and adult learning styles will enhance the instructive effectiveness, thereby improving the learning experience of individual apprenticeship with overall the National Apprenticeship System, so that the training may be provided with the apprenticeship program through an accredited institution or higher learning may occur before and after the apprenticeship instructor has been started, provided the related technical instruction. Probationary period. Probationary period. 17 commenters expressed the concern of the length of the probationary period was not defined with the proposed in Statute 29.5b19, which provided the simplicity cancellation during an apprenticeship probationary period will not adversely impact the sponsor's completion rate. The completion rate is a new factor for the evaluation of the program performance proposed in Statute 29.6b. Several commenters have suggested that define the specific not exceeding time of the probationary period such as 15% or 20% of the program length, but many of the commenters were concerned with without a time limit on the probationary period. The proposed regulations could permit any apprenticeship program to leave the apprenticeship in the probationary status for an extended period of time in an effort to improve the program's performance with the rating of the concealing of the program deficiencies. We agree that without the limit of the probationary period, the regulation could allow the information the using calculation completion rates to be skewed, thereby impacting the evaluation program performance in the recognition of the concern with the commenters. We have added language in Statute 29.5b8, limiting the length of the probationary period. Historically, national guideline for the apprenticeship standard recognized by the Office of Apprenticeship has been used for 25% of the length of the program benchmark, according with the final rules provided for the probationary period. That cannot exceed 25% of the length of the program in 1 year, whichever the shorter. Advanced standing and credit. The two commenters discussed in 29.5b12 to provide with the granting of the apprenticeship advantage with the standing of the credit into taken account with the demonstrated competency. One of the commenters asserted that the proposed rule could be reduced on-the-job learning of the possibility of compromising safety and health. The other commenter expressed concern about how the sponsor would evaluate the competency of the response. The provision of the grant of the apprenticeship advantage for the standing of the credit would not negatively impact the safety and health because of the discussed above. The apprenticeship are still required to have an on-job learning of them related with the instruction to enable the apprenticeship to recognize the product of themselves from safety and health hazards. With the regarding the evaluation competency for the sponsor, will use the definition for the competency of the statute 29.2, which provides for the sponsor with the use of an appropriate written hand-on proficiency measurement. The provision of final statute 29.5b12 are necessary to support the flexible approach with progression through the apprenticeship to identify in the statute 29.5b2. According, no changes have been made in the provision for the granting advanced standing or credit. Transfer. 27 commenters raised for the question of the proposed change, but which required the program sponsor for the committee to provide the transfer of apprenticeship within the transcript related to training with on-the-job learning completed with the permanent transfer of either the same or the related occupation. All allowance for the employer of the program sponsor for the initiative the transfer that stipulate the transfer must occur without the adverse impact on the apprenticeship employer of the program. Many of the commenters raised the concern about how many transfers would be initiated with the process of the executing with the transaction. Commenter questioned whether the proposed provision would permit an apprenticeship to unilaterally transfer from one program to without the consent of the program sponsor. The commenter suggested the transfer should be admissible for all sides, but the transfer apprenticeship should be tested and ensure the proper placement with the new apprenticeship program. The other commenters asserted that the involuntary transfer could adversely impact with the affected apprenticeship program sponsor of the committee. Another commenter questioned whether the proposed ruling requires the acceptance for the transfer. The commenter stated that the modifying of the section of the rule should be solely stated in sponsor responsibility. We agree that the commenters have valid concern about the unilateral decision of the apprenticeship, the transfer, the potential for the inverse for the impact of the affected party, but accordingly we have revised 29.5b13 to provide the transfer that must be based on agreement between the apprenticeship and the effective apprenticeship committee with the program sponsor, but the apprenticeship cannot unilaterally transfer one program to another from one employer to another employer in the same program without the consistent of the effective apprenticeship committee with the program sponsor. We disagree with this modification to the 29.5b13 should be solely in the state and sponsor responsible for the regulatory framework of the national apprenticeship system, establishing that this part must address the issue of the transfer to ensure all the apprenticeships, regardless of the geographical location, program sponsors have the equal uniform access to the same provision with this transfer. However, the procedure with the administrative issue is associated with the transferring apprenticeship for the testing, the determination, appropriate placement of the apprenticeship with the reaching agreement among the affected party, but the properly draft of the policy guidance for the issue of the Office of Apprenticeship rather than the regulatory framework of the National Apprenticeship System. According to the Office of Apprenticeship, will consult with apprenticeship program sponsors and state apprenticeship agencies to develop and issue guidelines effectively address these concerns. Several commenters said the provision proposed in Statute 29.5b13.2, which would permit the transfer of the related occupation within the same occupation, would not benefit the apprenticeship, especially if the program sponsor or employer were to shift apprenticeship between the job and task without ensuring the proper skills and knowledge and development. The three commenters suggest that the transfer must be within the same occupation or trade. One commenter noted that many of the apprenticeship programs in the building of the construction industry have the provisions of these standards for the transferring of the apprenticeship to other programs within their occupations. The response was that the proposed revision requirement that the transfer were intended to benefit the apprenticeship by providing greater flexibility should he or she demonstrate that transferring another apprenticeship program was necessary to accommodate the variations in his or her career development plan. The proposed changes were not intended to provide program sponsors with unlimited latitude for the apprenticeship among the different occupations accommodated with the sponsor workforce needs. We been persuaded by the commenters' assertion that the apprenticeship does not meet the journey worker in a skilled trade by transferring the skilled trade to the skilled trade, such as an operating engineer working as such as a carpenter, electrician, or painter. Also, there is some validity with concern with the reference of related occupation could be ambiguous, overly broad, and could result in the transfer into a different trade, the occupation for which the apprenticeship has no training under the guises for being related. Further, it would be unreasonable to expect the employer to pay a transferring apprenticeship compensated period wages with apprenticeship with appropriate occupational experience. Therefore, the final rule carries forward existing provisions with limit transfer to the same occupation. Other commenters suggest that the provision proposed in Statute 29.5b.13.1 would require the committee of the program to provide the transferring apprenticeship with the transcript of the related instruction on the job learning would encourage the recruitment between the apprenticeship program instead of focusing on the grade of the outreach. The response: we have not changed the requirement for the transferring apprenticeship must be provided with the transcript. The requirement for the program sponsored by the committee for providing the transfer apprenticeship with the transcript of the related instruction on the job learning is necessary for the further aligning national apprenticeship system and the post-secondary training with the educational system, with the credential system. Those systems provide participation with the documentation of what they have learned with a particular course, serious instruction on the training program, in addition with the provisions of the final rule requiring agreement among the apprenticeship with the effective apprenticeship committee for the program sponsored for the transfer will mitigate the potential for the program sponsor to focus on recruiting between the programs as discussed above with the program which apprenticeship is originally registered must agree with the transfer. In addition, with the final rule continue to serve for the purpose of existing statute 29.5b.13 which allow for the employer to transfer the training obligation with another employee with a consistent with the apprenticeship committee program sponsor. As discussed above, the department does not foresee with the transfer of apprenticeship registration from one program to another, from one employer to the other, and would occur frequently with regularity. The intent of a provision to provide flexibility for the apprenticeship to continue his or her apprenticeship in changing the circumstances. Interim credentials. The change for the proposed in Statute 29.5b.15 would add provision for the issuance of the interim credentials, the recognition for the apprenticeship that has attained skill to satisfy the certain requirements as he or she progresses through the competency based on their hybrid apprenticeship program. The proposed revision also carries forward with the existing requirement for the issuance of certificate completion of the recognition of successful completion of the apprenticeship program. We received 93 comments on the proposed Statute 29.5. B15. Some of the commenters expressed support for the interim credentials. Several commenters in question the need for the provision for the internal credentials, while the others noted that the program sponsors employers. Others already issue the such credentials response. Section 29.5b.15 continues to provide the does not existing rule for the certificate with the document successful completion for the apprenticeship program. However, the commenters have raised some of the valid concern as the proposed requirement for the interim credential for the address for the issue, but to further clarify the requirements for the interim credential. The final rule separated the requirement for the interim credential to new desecrate the paragraph 29.5b.16 that renumbers all other subsequent paragraphs 29.5b as final 29.5b.17 through 29.5b.23. The provided provision for the interim credentials were not intended to require all the program sponsors to use for the interim, but the credentials not even require that the sponsor choosing to use the competency-based approach with a hybrid approach using the interim credentials. Finally, Statute 29.5b.16 clarifies that the program, students apprenticeship program sponsor to choose the use of the competency-based or the hybrid approach for the completion of any of the apprenticeship they choose. The issue of the interim credentials was clearly identified. The interim credentials demonstrate how the credentials linked to the component with the apprenticeship occupation established the process of the assessing of the individual apprenticeship to demonstrate the competency associated with particular interim credential. Further, the interim credentials must only be issued by the recognized components of the apprenticeship occupation, thereby the linking interim credentials specifically to the knowledge and skills abilities associated with the component of the apprenticeship occupation. Commenters expressed concern for the use of the interim credentials, but redefine the journey worker status means that over the 20 commenters for the serve of the provision for the interim credentials to diminish the value of the deter trainee for the obtaining the journey worker status. Other commenters misinterpreted the provision interim credentials as permitting the program sponsor to reduce the requirements for the on-job learning this to achieve the particular skill with the ability, thereby producing inadequate training of the journey worker. Some of the commenters stated that these provisions could be weaken the workforce to produce workers that specialize rather than comprehensive training for the parts of the occupation. Other commenters asserted that the ultimately issuance of the interim credentials could lead to the segment of the workforce working for lower wages and less job security. Response: we disagree with the assertion that the intern credentials may be potentially negatively impact with the workforce the value of the journeyman worker status as discussed both in some of the industry program of the sponsor and in pilot for the commodity-based apprenticeship program that already are using intern credentials. Having determined that some of the principal occupations are capable of being segregated into discrete competencies or levels of skill attainment which can serve as discrete milestone on the path to journeyman worker status. Providing interim credentials to show that an apprenticeship has reached those milestones merely acknowledges the fact Therefore, the interim credentials are not intended to narrow the breadth or the depth of the training component with the registered apprenticeship, rather than they provide the important opportunity for the apprenticeship to attain portable credentials, commensurate with the skill for the competency acquired for the demonstrated through an apprenticeship program. Therefore, the attainment of the interim credentials may be provided with the apprenticeship who must leave the program who means to obtain the better job if he or she could without credential. To discuss above in the discussion the definition in terms of credentials, this issue with the certificate of the completion of the apprenticeship associated with the journeyman worker level and status remain the ultimate goal for the national apprenticeship system. The interim credentials do not indicate that the apprenticeship has met all of the requirements of the apprenticeship, nor he or she has successfully mastered the full range of the skills and competency required for the occupation. The certificate of the completion, but is thereby a credential with the properly conveyed for the apprenticeship that has successfully met the requirements of the apprenticeship program. Therefore, the designation of the journey worker as associated with the status will not be affected by the use of the interim credentials. However, in recognition of the stakeholders concerned over the impact of the interim credentials, the department will establish a process to assess the implementation of the interim credentials. Initially, registration agency program sponsors will use the quality assurance assessment process to identify and assess any of the impact of the interim credentials on the program operation outcome of the following consultation with the stakeholder. The National Apprenticeship System offers the apprenticeship incentive for the use of the policy of the guidance of the review of interim credentials. 30 commenters expressed concern about the potential negative impact of the National Apprenticeship System if the interim credentials are based on sponsors standard for the instead of the industry standard. The commenters observe that the national standards are necessary for the credentials may be portable and meaning to employers across the definition of different regions. Response: the National Apprenticeship System is responsible for the only registered training of the apprenticeship program of the trained employee with the apprenticeship of the occupation that have been determined the apprenticeship. The Office of Apprenticeship has established criteria for the perceived, the recognized the apprenticeship occupation will require the industry verification validation for the skill knowledge necessary for the occupation. The process initially incorporated with the industry participation with the credentials associated with the profession through an apprenticeship program for an apprenticeship occupation will have the portable and have means to employers nationwide. As discussed above, the new 295B16 clarified that interim credentials must only be used to issue recognized components of an apprenticeship occupation. Therefore, the interim credentials associated with the specific skills and knowledge for the apprenticeship occupation are verified and validated by the industry through the process of proving the apprenticeship occupation. Numerous commenters suggest that the provision of interim credentials would place the additional resource, time, and the documentation burden of the registration agency. No apparent provision of verification of the credential validity. Some commenters recommended the use of the interim credentials should not be mandated, but there should be left to the discretion of the states to mandate. Response: while considering interim credentials to be valuable to furthering apprenticeship, we emphasize the program sponsors are not required to develop and register standard for the apprenticeship that include the interim credentials now are recognized by the state apprenticeship agency required to issue the interim credentials. We anticipate that such credentials will be used frequently by the programs that take a competency-based or hybrid approach for the progression through the apprenticeship. Further, the department pilots for the competency-based for the apprenticeship program and the registered agency have provided technical assistance to sponsor the help identify the appropriate procedure and criteria determining if and when the appropriate merits of receiving the interim credential. The department anticipates the registration agency will continue to provide technical assistance in developing competency-based hybrid apprenticeship programs. The issue of the interim credentials associated with these programs and with the certificate with the completion of the registration agency for the entity responsible for issuing the interim credentials as the request for the program sponsor. The department acknowledges the institution and process of the issuance of the interim credentials, which can constitute an additional burden for those states' apprenticeship agencies. Those that currently do not issue the such certification based on components of expressing concern about the potential time and documentation burdens. We agree that the state apprenticeship agency should not be required to issue the interim credentials as precondition with the recognition, according with the recognized state of the apprenticeship agency who may choose the issue of the interim with the credential. We use their own procedure for compliance with the part, but the final rule does not require them to do so. However, in order to maintain uniformity across the national apprenticeship system, the further apprenticeship progression through the apprenticeship of the department has determined the opportunities must be available nationwide. But the program sponsors register the program standards, the use of the competency-based or hybrid approach for the completion of the apprenticeship that issue of the interim credential. Therefore, the office of the apprenticeship will offer the issue of the interim credential nationwide, where the prerequisites are met. If recognized by the state apprenticeship agency, register the program standard that use for the competency based for the hybrid approach does not issue for the interim credentials. The program sponsor may require for the office of apprenticeship to issue for the interim credentials to apprenticeship who have successfully meet the requirements of the interim credential established in the program standards for their respective apprenticeship program. If the recognized state apprenticeship agency does not register the program standard to use the competency based for the hybrid approach, then a program Sponsor compensation with the registered apprenticeship exam with the Office of Apprenticeship for the federal purpose. The Office of Apprenticeship will issue the interim with the credential with the prerequisites that are met. Two commoners maintain with the maiden entity the use of the interim credentials would cover the apprenticeship program to incur the enormous cost of developing testing to determine whether the apprenticeship is entitled to the interim credential. The response discussed above the final rules does not mandate the use of the interim credentials. Program sponsors use the registered stamp of the competency base of the hybrid program to provide the issuance of the interim credential would bear the costs associated with developing and operating with the apprenticeship program. That all registered apprenticeship program sponsors voluntarily operate with the apprenticeship program and choose to incur the costs associated with the program. Cancellation. 17 commoners expressed with the concern of the length of the probationary period with the defined with this proposed 29.5b 13 and 19 with the provided simplicity cancellation during the apprenticeship probationary period will not adversely impact the sponsor's completion rate and the new factor for the evaluation program performance proposed by the statute 29.6b and 29c. Several commoners suggest that defining specific economics to exceed the time of the probationary period, such as 15% and 20% of the program length. Many of the comments were concerned that without a time limit on the probation period, the proposed regulation could permit the apprenticeship program to leave the apprenticeship and probation status for an extended period of time in an effort to improve the program performance rating and concealing the program's deficiency. 12 commoners believe that not accounting cancellation during the probationary period with along with the program's adjusting the length of the probationary period could artificially improve the completion rate. Others felt that the cancellation rate during the probation period and properly categorized and be used to evaluate the program performance. Some of the commoners stated that it would be important that the monitored program that have the high rate of attrition to during the probationary period to check for abuse. Other advocates of that only cancellation that were due to the failure provided in the training accordance with the sponsored approval. The standard should be counted with the completion rate and strength with the proposed rule for the inclusion with the cancellation rate with the probation period with the calculation with the completion with the rate due not to distinguish between those cancellation that were followed with the program and those over which the program has little and if any control. We agree that if the important with the monitor program for the high cancellation rate during the probationary period for the many years, the Office of Apprenticeship has included the cancellation rate as a factor for consideration when the staff members conduct quality assurance and assessment if the appropriate has been used for the information for the provision, technical assistance, or programming sponsor. Although the final rule does not provide with inclusion and cancellation with occurred during the probationary periods and the calculation of completion rate with the important with the information provided and evaluated addressed through the quality assurance assessment process. We also agree without the limit of the probationary period with the regulation could allow the information used for the calculation completion rate of the scoop, thereby impacting the evaluation program performance. Recognition for the concern with the commenters who have added the language to the statute 29.5b8, limiting the length of the probationary period. Historically, the national guideline for the apprenticeship standard recognized by the Office of Apprenticeship has been used 25% of the length of the program benchmark. Accordingly, the final rule provided the probationary period cannot exceed 25% of the length of the period for 1 year, whichever is shorter. We disagree that only the cancellation due to the failure to provide with the training in accordance with the sponsor approved with the standard to be counted in completion rate. Program sponsors policy and administrative procedures such as not providing the study of the worker's experience reduce the apprenticeship of opportunities in interim wages, thereby cannot impact the apprenticeship's ability to remain registered in the program. Therefore, analysis of the program cancellation rate can be provided with the important indicator with the need for the further evaluate the program operation policy procedure if need for the provide the technical assistance discussion further in the discussion of the program performance standard. We emphasize that the registration agency evaluation completion rates will include the analysis of the mitigation factors. No substantive changes that have been made to proposed Statute 29.5b19, which will be promulgated in Statute 29.5b20. Program Performance Standards, Statute 29.6. The 29.6 a new section with the focus of the quality of the performance registered apprenticeship of the program. The few comments generally support the proposed change within the section, but question for the Office of Apprenticeship ability to successfully evaluate the registered program to give it the current budget and the staff leveling. The former A agreed with the registration agents required with adequate resource to successfully evaluate all the registered program under the provision of this section. The Office of Apprenticeship of the staff has conducting quality assurance, assessment, equal opportunity with the operating compliance reviews, as well as part of the normal responsibility for the helping to ensure the program sponsors comply with the requirements of the regulation with the Part 30 of the process of the conducting of these reviews currently include the assessing of the program performance against the key indicators, including the completion of the cancellation rate, therefore the functions of the calculation completion rates, conducting quality assurance and assessment, employment with the opportunity for compliance review, and providing technical assistance as required with the final of the statute 29.6 that have effectively have been part of the Office of Apprenticeship current with the practice for the evaluating monitoring programs through the extent of the Office of Apprenticeship with current resources may not become construed with requirements of the section. We may realign resources internally to effectively and efficiently conduct these activities. at least one registered apprentice. Section 29.6a would provide that every program must have at least one registered apprentice in order to designate or retain the designation as a registered apprenticeship program for the federal purpose. The commentator observed that there may be times when the program is between the training cycle that has no apprenticeship for a short period of time. Other commenters observe that the provision does not adequately address the apprenticeship program with one or few apprenticeships that never graduate. Sometimes the commenters suggested establishing a time frame for determining if the program has an effective apprenticeship or apprentices. Response. We agree that there may be time for the sponsor may have a lag between the training cycle to be without with registered apprenticeship for a short period of time. However, the program line is dormant with a substantial period of time that is appropriate to consider if the program is no longer viable. Therefore, we agree with the suggestion to establish time frame for determining the program of the active apprenticeship to account for the short lag of time mentioned in common with the other reasonable period of inactivity that may occur with the otherwise active program. We consider a period up to 1 year with a reasonable period of inactivity will determine that the time frame of the program to be not have the apprenticeship registered with the registration agency should not exceed 1 year. We have revised statute 29.6a with accordingly regard with the commenter's assertion with the provision does not adequately address the program that never graduate with the apprenticeship requirements set forth in 29.6b. Will those programs be accountable? Evaluation of the program performance. 28 comments addressed with the statute 29.6b with provided with the non-exclusive list of the tools and the factors that must be considered with evaluating the performance of the registered apprenticeship program. 9 commenters expressed concern that there is no proposed definition of the quality assurance assessment. One of the tools and factors to be considered in evaluating performance may request the definition of the completion of the rate. Other commenters requested the department to clarify the intended the purpose of each of the performance tools and factors, how they are to be used, and one of the commenters suggested adding requirement that the tools and factors be consistent with the federal and standard of the goal of the states. Could it not add factors conflicting with the Part 29 CFR Part 30 with the National Apprenticeship Act? Response. We agree with the definition for the term of completion rate with the quality assurance assessment would be provided with greater clarity with the proposed performance act accountability framework established with the final rule. Accordingly, we would discuss above if we have additional definition for the term completion rate and quality assurance assessment. Statute 2019 with the 3 performance factors specifically required are quality assurance assessment, equal opportunity compliance reviews, and completion rates as discussed above in the discussion of the definition of Statute 2019 with the quality assurance assessment of the comprehensive review conducted with the registration agency to determine the apprenticeship program with addressing the program standard for the meeting of the requirement over this part. The equal opportunity compliance reviews are required under the Part 130 with the data of the program completion rates with intended to provide registration agency with the information useful to support and technical assistance efforts to improve the program performance. Emphasize the additional tools factors using registration agency evaluating program performance must adhere to the goals and policy with the department articulated in this part and the guidance issued by the Office of Transportation Completion or Apprenticeship. Your completion rate. A registration agency with the completion rate with evaluating the program performance provided in the proposed statute 29.6b and C with reviewed mixed review. One commenter observed that the proposed rule will likely result in an annual effect on the economy of $100 million or more. Therefore, the proposed rule qualifies as a major rule under the Executive Order 128866, the Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Acts. The commenter asserted that state and local governments are included in the bid provision with the requirement of the contractor to apprenticeship that will have successfully completed an apprenticeship of the program approved with the Department of the State and recognized with the State Apprenticeship Agency on the condition of the bidding of the participation on the project. The commenter asserted that such bid requirements will likely foreclose on the unilateral apprenticeship program sponsored from them being able to bid on and be awarded the state local construction project, which will be likely for the annual adverse impact on the economy exceeding $1 million. Although the comment did not mention that particular section of the rule, we have determined that the commenter's established anticipated impact was primarily based on the expected cost of compliance with the statute 29.6b and C. The commenter recommended that determine withdrawal of the proposed provision with the completion rate so that the officer of apprenticeship can conduct further study and discussion of the interested stakeholders. Many commenters noted that the evaluation of the apprenticeship program on the basis of the completion rate would align with the national apprenticeship system on the federal education programs and make eligibility of the receipt of the federal funding dependent in part of the program's achievement of the minimal graduation rates. Other than state of the evaluation would improve the program accountability, ensure the higher quality of reflect the effect of the program. However, another commenter asserted that the reference completion rate could unfairly penalize the program that make the affirmative effort to recruit the apprenticeship with the national tradition pool with the dropout rate for those recruited with the riskier group to be higher than normal. Other commenters stated that the use of the completion rate should be also penalized. The small program, the completion rates can also be affected dramatically with the cancellation of one or more two apprenticeship agreements. Some of Some commenters oppose the provision provided and proposed in 29.6b would provide with the evaluation of completion rate of the programs located in the same geographical area that is necessary for the further review and provision of the technical assistance for the maintain and improve the program performance. One of the commenters asserted that there's one areas are short-sighted to compare the programs rather than individually evaluate the program based on their merits. Another commentator characterized the particular proposed provision as highly subjective and ambiguous, suggests that the standard should be set at a minimum completion rate above which the program's completion rate will not be deemed the negative factor. Another remarked the absence of the firm standard of the proposed regulation. Others asserted that their proposed requirements would favor the union-operated programs, do nothing to improve the apprenticeship program's response. The department does not agree with the evaluating completion rates as an indicator of the program quality would unfairly penalize the program with recruit the non-traditional application pool. Nor do we agree with the completion rates would penalize the small program whose completion rates could affect dramatically with the cancellation of one of the two apprenticeship agreements. The primary purpose of the completion rate evaluated is not to penalize the programs described below or the goal of the assessment of the mechanism of identifying the programs that will benefit the technical assistant to become higher performance programs only when the program demonstrates the persistence and significant failure to perform, successful poor collection rates, completion rates, the factor potential deregistration proceedings. We agree that comparing like with the programs, particularly when they were only by the comparable program in a geographically area, may not be feasible effective for the program for the evaluation completion rates. We also agree with the suggestion to establish a minimum completion rate above which the program completion rate will not be deemed a negative factor. We have determined the national average of the apprenticeship completion would be a reasonable benchmark to use evaluating performance and register of the apprenticeship program for the purpose of identifying the programs in need of technical assistance. According with it, we have revised the 29.6c to require that the registration agency review the program completion rates in comparison to the national average of the completion rate of the program. With the completion rates lower than the national average will receive technical assistance for the registration agency standard in the NPRM. The use of the completion rate of the program review is not intended to limit the terminate the existing apprenticeship program that will receive the technical assistance from the registration agency, demonstrating the improved the program performance or the impaired the prospect of apprenticeship program transfers rather than use of the completion rates intended to the strength of the program outcome of the quality of the national apprenticeship system by setting a benchmark that identifies the program that could benefit the technical assistance. In order to complete the reflective of the focus, the technical assistance for the program with the completion rates below the national average will have dropped the reference to the period with the proposed Statute 29.6c for the registration agency take other appropriate actions against such of the program deletion for the phrase. The map will clarify simply falling below the national average of the completion rate does not leave the deregistration procedure. Completion rates may be potentially factored in the deregistration procedure only when demonstrating an ongoing pattern with the very low completion rates over the period of the several years. See the discussion of the persistent with a significant failure to perform below. Rather than specifically specifying the detail of the implementation program performance standard for the registered apprenticeship, we believe the best is Statute 29.6 is the establish the regulatory framework with the provide for the basis for the Office of Apprenticeship. The issue of the more detailed guidance for the Office of Apprenticeship will consult the apprenticeship program sponsored by the recognized the state apprenticeship agency to develop an issue of the guidance regarding the program performance and standards and accountability in a national apprenticeship system. This consultation process would also be to represent responsible for the commenter's recommendation for further discover the provision completion rate with the interested stakeholders approach with the similar Department of Regulatory frame and the performance management system established for the programs under the Workforce Investment Act. The department disagreed with the assertion of the relationship between the bid requirements for the state and local construction projects with the provision of the completion rates for the Statute 29.6b with the state, which will likely have the annual impact on the economy exceeding $100 million. None of these provisions final Statute 29.6 nor any other provision final rule provided for the relate of the establishment bid requirements for the state and local construction projects. Cancellation of apprenticeship with the agreement during the probation period. Many of the commenters oppose the provision Statute 29.6d will provide with the cancellation apprenticeship agreement with the probationary period would not have an adverse impact on sponsored completion rate with the commenters to say that all the cancellation should be considered in the program review, particularly to determine the program sponsored with the registered program primarily to meet the contract requirement of the federal works projects under the Davis-Bacon Act. Response. Existing regulation provided with the probation period in recognition of both the apprenticeship sponsored by the apprenticeship should have sufficient time to determine the apprenticeship agreement is beneficial during the probationary period. The apprenticeship may have many reasons for the cancellation agreements which may have nothing to do with the program, including the apprenticeship agreement with the cancellation during the probationary period with the cancellation of completion rates that inadvertently caused the program sponsors to adopt more stringent selection requirements in any effort to minimize being penalized. More of the stringent selection requirements could reduce limited apprenticeship opportunity that would otherwise have been available available. We seek to avoid the regulatory framework that would unintentionally reduce apprenticeship opportunities. However, the registration agency do include the cancellation rates, important information, and their oversight of the registered apprenticeship programs. Cancellation rates include those that occurred during the probation period are reviewed in conjunction with the Equal Opportunity Act, complying with the review of the appropriate registration agency of the information provision technical assistance. Therefore, we have determined the proposal for the cancellation apprenticeship agreement not to have adverse impact on the sponsor of the completion rate if the cancellation occurs during the apprenticeship probationary period. Is an appropriate balance between the need to hold the program sponsors accountable with the need to promote the apprenticeship opportunities. We have made no changes in statute 29.6D. All right, apprenticeship agreement. I'm going to cut the tape.